here. So this is going to be just a little review video of what we've been doing the last 4 days, and that is to solve a system of linear equations. This is from homework 1, which was assigned on 11/23, so I'm going to do a couple of the problems to go through the process of how we're doing this. Everything what we're doing is going to be the same. So this should be a good review on how to do graphing systems. The first thing we need to remember is it needs to be in the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So as I'm taking these notes, you should be taking these notes too if you need some extra help. So we talked about how that means that our m is always next to the x. This is our slope. We're going to use our slope to count rise over run. So our m is, we count rise over run. It tells us how many to go up or down, and then how many to go right or left. The next piece of this, the only other piece we need, is the b. So this b over here tells us what our first step is going to be. Our b is given as 0, comma, whatever the number for b is. It's going to be an ordered pair. So what we do with that is, our b is we graph that point first. So there are 2 steps only to graphing in slope-intercept form. We want to write these steps down. Step 1. So we're going to go over to number 5 and look at first just picking out the m and the b from our equation. This says y equals mx plus b. We should know from this first one, this is the first equation, what's my m? So that tells me what is right next to my x. That's my m. 3 over 4. Remember, we need the slope as a fraction because we're going to count rise over run. So the 3 tells me we're going up. That's because it's positive. The 4 tells me I'm going to go right, and that's because it's positive. That's how we look at a number line or a graph. When we go up on a graph, they're positive numbers. When we go to the right, they're positive numbers. So for the second part, again, this is in the correct format. This over here, the number all by itself, along with if it's positive or negative, that's our b. That's why I wrote this over the top. So this is our b. So we need to make it an ordered pair and put a 0 in front of it. 0, comma, and that's a positive 1. So our b is 0, 1. So step 1, I'm just going to graph one equation at a time. Step 1 is always the same. We graph the b as our first point. That's step 1. So I go to my b, and you might want to write under here, this is where we start. I'm going to graph 0, 1. So 0, 1 is right here. Remember, our b is always on this up and down line, the y-axis. So that's also another hint. We know it's always going to be going up and down on this y-axis. Now the second thing we do, there's only 2 steps. Step 2. And again, you should be writing these down along with me if you need a little refresher. Step 2. We use our slope, which is our m, and we count rise over run. That means we count how many we go up and how many do we go left or right. So up or down, and then left or right, and then what we also do is, and we put a point, then put our second point. There's only 2 steps. You put your first point on the B after you identify it, and we just did that. And now I'm going to count. My slope is 3/4, or 3/4. So that means I need to go up 3. So I'm just going to count 3 boxes. 1, 2, 3, and I go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where I put my second point. Those little dots were just to help me count. If I wanted to go the other way with my line, so I can connect these two to make my line. If I need to go the other way, I just go back to my slope and I reverse the arrow. So instead of going up, I can go down. Instead of going right, I can also go left. That takes me the other way on my line. So let's just look. We go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and I go left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? Does it look like I'm making a straight line? Yep. That's how you graph in slope-intercept form. You're going to do this with 2 equations on the same graph, but the steps are no different with the second equation. So let's look at the second equation now. So I want to make sure, this is y equals, and I'm going to make this smaller so I can label it so that I can see. This is y equals mx plus b. I know right away what's in my m position. My m is always next to the x, so my m is -1/2. There's a negative out front, so I just put it on the top number. That means when I go to graph, I'm going to go down because it's a -1, and then the 2 is positive, so I go right. It also means if I want to go the other way, I can flip the arrows. I can go up, and I can go left. I can do either or to go both ways on my line. And then the next part, what is my B? Remember, my B is off by itself, and it's the whole entire term with the sign in front of it. It's either a positive or a negative. So this is -4 is in my B position. So we always write it as 0, comma, and then whatever my B is, -4. So I'm going to go back to my steps. Every single one of these are going to be the same. Step 1 is I go to my B, and I look at it, and I put, this is where I start. I put my first point on the B. So 0, -4. So I'm going to go 0, -4 is down here. Again, I know my first point always has to be on this up and down y-axis. And then my second step, I'm looking over here. Okay, I forget, what do I do? Okay, so I use the M to count rise over run. Oh, okay, now, and then I put my other point. So I'm going to use my slope, and I'm from this point, the first point that I put, and I'm going to go down 1 and right 2. So if I use the first set of arrows. If I look at that, if I keep going, it looks like I'm going to go off my graph. So now what happens is I'm going to go the other way on my line. I'm going to actually use this to go the other way. I just flipped my arrows. Instead of the negative being on the 1, I'm going to go up. And instead of going right, I'm going to go left. So I go up 1, right 2. Up 1, right 2. And right away, I can see these two met. So I am done with the graphing. And the last part is to tell me, what is this solution? Where they meet is the solution to the system. So, when I'm finding that, I basically just find the x comma y, the solution. So I go, the x is how many we go over. So if I'm looking here, and I'll just use a different color to trace, I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, which makes it, if I'm going left, it's a -4. And then I go down how many? 1, 2. I went down, so it's negative. So this is where they meet, at -4, -2. So that's the solution to my system. So this is just a mini review that I want you to use, because every single problem that we do, this is what you're expected to know. You're expected to tell me what the slope is, what the B is, and then you're also expected to know the 2 steps on how to graph. So make sure you take these notes along with me and then practice some of these. And then I will put the key up for the rest of these. But these are good practice because that's essentially, this is all we've been doing, and that's all you need to know how to do is to graph the 2 lines. Hopefully this video helps a little bit.